Hello and welcome to Global with me, Karin Giannoni, broadcasting live from the BBC's newsroom here in the heart of London. Islamist fighters in Iraq march on. They've taken control of a key oil refinery town. Now they're attacking Tikrit. 500,000 people are on the move, fleeing the city of Mosul and the men from the militant group ISIS. It's a conspiracy, says Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, but he's accused of ignoring security warnings and pursuing policies which have fanned the ethnic violence in the country.
The Council of Ministers has decided to declare a state of high alert and to mobilize all efforts to face up to the existing challenges.
Also on Global today, as India's Prime Minister tells Parliament the country must stop politicising rape, another woman's found hanging from a tree in the state of Uttar Pradesh. It kills more than 500,000 people a year. Now, in the battle against malaria, it seems that men may be the answer. Well, male mosquitoes, at least. We'll reveal all.
I'm in Sao Paulo, which will host the first of the World Cup matches tomorrow. Brazil's president says her country is ready.
There are people who claim the resources for the World Cup should have been directed to healthcare and education. I hear and respect those opinions, but I don't agree with them.
But not everyone's convinced. I've been meeting an artist who's using spray paintings to make his point.
Hello and welcome to Global. I'm Karin Giannoni. Now, a day ago, the city of Mosul fell to Islamic militants. The key oil refinery town of Baiji quickly followed. Now we have breaking news from the Associated Press, quoting security officials that say Saddam Hussein's hometown of Tikrit has been seized. Now, to those who thought the country was enjoying relative peace, the news will have come as a shock. But for 500,000 Iraqis, it's forced them from their homes and raised the prospect of an insurgent-run Islamic state straddling large parts, not just of their own country, but Syria too. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is calling it a conspiracy, but many say it's his policies that divided the country and set the scene for violence. Paul Adams reports.
Exodus from Mosul goes on. These dramatic pictures from the Tigris River show civilians fleeing, fighting on the other side. Perhaps as many as 500,000 people have now left Iraq's second largest city. Roads are clogged as families seek shelter in nearby Kurdish areas. In Mosul itself, the smouldering aftermath of a battle that didn't take long. The militants attacked just 5 days ago. On Monday, the provincial governor urged residents to hold firm. Hours later, he was gone. Iraq's outgunned security forces weren't far behind. Militants now control government offices and banks too.
Today we are dealing with a situation. We are not going to allow this to carry on, irrespective of the price.
In January, another major city, Fallujah, fell to the same hardline group, the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. The government has tried and failed to take it back. Tens of thousands of people have fled. ISIS now controls a broad swathe of territory across the Middle East. In Iraq's Anbar province, Fallujah is still in rebel hands, and there's been fighting in Ramadi too. In Syria, the group is involved in fighting in Aleppo and has a regional base in Raqqa. And now, in a dramatic extension of their influence, they have Mosul too.
This group of people now, there's tens of thousands of these guys, and they now have a territory. They control territory, they control border crossing points, they control oil resources, mineral resources, trade, income. They have a base in the middle of the Middle East.
In Syria, ISIS has waged a savage campaign against Shia Muslims and Christians, part of its wider effort to create an Islamic state. It's made extensive use of foreign fighters, including some of the hundreds of young British Muslims who've gone out to fight. Back in Iraq, the government is struggling to respond. Overnight, there were clashes in Baiji, whose major oil refinery supplies much of the country. These unverified pictures appear to show fighting before the militants reportedly withdrew. With hundreds of thousands of Iraqis once more on the move, it's clear the country is now in the grip of a crisis as bad as anything since American forces left 3 years ago. Paul Adams, BBC News.
So let's just recap on what we've been hearing in the past couple of minutes, that reports from Tikrit, that you may remember is Saddam Hussein's hometown, suggest that the ISIS fighters moving in there have taken over the centre of the town and freed hundreds of prisoners. The same fighters, the same group that seized the northern city of Mosul just 24 hours or so ago after police and soldiers abandoned their posts in that major city. So Tikrit, the latest to fall to Islamic fighters in Iraq. Now, earlier, the Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki vowed to fight back against the jihadists.
First, the Council of Ministers has decided to declare a state of high alert and to mobilize all efforts to face up to the existing challenges. Second, the seriousness of the situation needs immediate and swift measures to preserve the national security and the people. This requires the offices of the Prime Minister and the Presidency to ask Parliament to shoulder its responsibilities and declare a state of emergency and general mobilization.
Well, let's just talk to Dr. Moder Al-Hamadani, who's a National Emergency Coordinator with the International Organization for Migration, whose teams are helping those large numbers of people leaving Mosul. He's in Erbil in northern Iraq. Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Hamadani. Just tell us the situation that you know of.
Yeah, actually, I am monitoring the situation of the people of Mosul on 3 levels. The people who stay now inside Mosul. The IDPs left Mosul to areas in need around Mosul city, and also the IDPs who managed to get access into Kurdistan region here in Erbil and Tufa. In general, the situation of the IDPs are very bad. We are facing a massive displacement over the last 24 hours. More than 500,000 individuals fled from Mosul, seeking a safer place in areas around the city, such as Hamdaniya, Bashir, and Zumar. More families are trying to get into Erbil.
Dr. Al-Hamadani, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but the Skype line is very bad. We aren't able to hear too much of what you're saying, but we are understanding from you it's a very, very serious situation, a massive displacement of people. Thank you very much for joining us from the Organisation for Migration in Erbil in northern Iraq. Let's talk to Fawaz Gerges, who's Professor of Middle Eastern Politics at the London School of Economics and Political Science here. Fawaz Gerges, how bad is this?
It's a disaster. Al-Qaeda, or the Islamic State in Iraq and Asham, controls more than 50% of Iraq today. More than 50%. The 2 major cities in Iraq, Fallujah and Mosul. Mosul is the 2nd largest city in Iraq, almost 2 million people. They control banks, security forces. The Iraqi security forces have almost disintegrated, collapsed. And this tells you a great deal about the ability of the Islamic State to expand its influence in many parts of Iraq and carry out complex attacks throughout the country.
So 50% of Iraq in population terms now facing occupation by this group. Did people get taken by surprise? Did they not see this coming in Iraq or beyond?
There is no surprise. The war has been taking place for almost 2 years. This has happened under the watch of the Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. He has made the fight against the Islamic State his signature. He has built himself as the one and the only leader who can rid Iraq out of the Islamic State of Iraq and Asham. And yet, look what has happened. Look at how he mismanaged both the economy and the political system, dysfunctional. He has aggravated his authoritarian and sectarian-based politics, have basically aggravated the sectarian tensions and have allowed the Islamic State to find a shelter, a base. You cannot understand why the Islamic State has basically increased in power and momentum without understanding that the Islamic State now has a social base, a power base, local support, that didn't come from nowhere. This has been building up, accumulating for the last 2 or 3 years.
Are you blaming solely Nouri al-Maliki, or are you blaming factors which go right back to the invasion in 2003?
Well, look, he is the Prime Minister. He has been the Prime Minister for many years. I mean, the entire world has been barking and saying, look, pay attention to the cleavages and the social, ideological and sectarian cleavages. Pay attention, listen create a national unity government. Of course, the Americans, the American invasion, occupation of Iraq has opened the gates of hell. Basically, the Islamic State in Iraq and Sham, and this is really Al-Qaeda in Iraq, is a side effect mutation of the American invasion. Not only the Islamic State is a product of the American invasion, the Americans dismantled state institutions, dissolved the Iraqi army. Thousands of officers and soldiers who were dissolved by the Americans have joined the Islamic State. You cannot understand the skills and the ability of the Islamic State to expand without understanding the skills that it has been able to co-opt from the army that was dissolved by the Americans.
What happens now? How does this now get undone, or will it be undone? Does this now require another invasion of Iraq?
No, I don't think so. The Americans are not coming back. They have made it very clear. And no one is going to invade Iraq or to come back to Iraq except probably the Iranians are going to send a great deal of support. I mean, I hope that this is really as serious as it gets. Iraq now is on the brink of all-out war. Let's hope that this particular serious moment represents a catalyst. A catalyst for what? For Iraqis, all Iraqis. I'm not just blaming the Iraqi Prime Minister, the entire political class coming together, creating a national unity government, basically pulling out the rug from under feet the Islamic State in Iraq and rebuilding the Iraqi state that was dissolved by the Americans, and putting an end to this particular plague that threatens not only Iraq, Syria and the Levant, but the entire Middle East.
Fawaz Gerges, thank you very much from the LSE.